I don't like to be constipated, and they make you constipated.
I will always.
That's gonna be the opening of this.
Out
for the.
Hey everybody, welcome to another fun-filled, fantastic, feathering, floating episode of Mostly Harmless with Matt and Sarah.
Yes, and I'm still recovering. I still have one drain in, but I'm not on the hardcore meds. I'm just doing Tylenol. I don't know if I was just doing Tylenol at the point we recorded our last episode.
I don't think you did a lot of
I actually only took Tylenol once today, so I'm doing pretty good.
Good on you. I don't think you did a lot of the hardcore meadows.
No, I didn't really. I don't like the way they make me feel. I don't like to be constipated, and they make you constipated.
I will always.
That's gonna be the opening of this
episode. I would pay money regularly to be regular, if not over regular, because there is nothing that I can always find a bathroom. If I have not gone to the restroom for a couple days, I get anxiety.
Constipation gives me anxiety for sure.
And I don't like it.
Yeah.
So those of you who like to be constipated, I think you're tuning into the wrong show. This is not your demographic.
Yeah, for sure. There was, before we jump into our topic for today, there was an episode once of, I think it was Bachelor in Paradise, where like literally for like 2 or 3 episodes, it was following this girl who like couldn't poop, and she was like doing all the things, and you know, they were giving her spicy food, giving her coffee, they had the doctors come in and take a look at her. I think they were giving her like laxatives and stuff. She ended up having to leave the show so she could like come back to, because they film it in Mexico. So she had to come back to go to her doctor so that she could get treated for her.
Let me pick the poop princess from Bachelor in Paradise.
I know, it was so sad.
She got her 15 minutes of fame. That's at least a story.
I know, but
do you have any other?
Spoiled due to constipation.
Or was the romance marinated or steeped?
Steeped, I don't know. Anyways, Matt, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about another curious case.
We are on the case, curiously.
It says it's the curious case of Bam Margera.
Oh, nay, Matt. The Britney Spears of Jackass.
Yes, but it has little, if all, to do with... In fact, it doesn't even have a resolution with Bam's story. It basically said Bam is the diving board.
Yes.
And Lima and Aura they just are the swimming pool.
The YouTube L. Woods lawyer BJ. It becomes much more about them than about Bam. Bam is kind of just the vehicle into this like public feud between this VR reality rehab person, which I have thoughts, and then
I have thoughts like she has the personality of a wet paper bag,
and then this YouTube lawyer who has taken up the cause to end controversial conservatorships, which I have thoughts.
It's not a conservatorship.
This is not technically a conservatorship. It is a guardianship. I have a whole bunch of notes. Let's back up for a second. The Curious Case of Natalia Grace was very popular. There are so many wild and crazy stories out there, things you can scarcely believe. And so Investigation Discovery, HBO Max, because we watch it on HBO Max, they decided to make it a series. So each episode is a curious case of. Mm-hmm. The very first episode is the curious case of Bam Margera. The Bam Margera case in and of itself is just tragic. I don't think that it's like wild in as much as it is just tragic.
Well, it's a very common case of you put a talented person in an extraordinary situation and surround them with a lot of stuff, basically. So We'll just roll into it. One of the things that I found very interesting was the dichotomy between they interview Steve-O and obviously Bam Margera. And one of the things that I found very, I'm going to say, endearing for Steve-O and sad for Bam Margera was they were polar opposites of where they are today versus where they are now.
They've essentially flipped life circumstances.
So Steve-O was couch surfing and doing it all and having a great time. And I mean, you got to think that these guys needed a little extra to be kicked in the nuts and tased repeatedly on a regular basis.
Yeah, there was a point where Steve-O, I think he was fibbing a little. He goes, Jackass wasn't about substance use. Yeah, and I was like, none of you guys are doing half the shit that you did on that show without some liquid courage, some substance of some kind, like emboldening you to just be stupid.
It's like Jackass was about people. It was by substance abuse for substance abuse.
Yeah, but
well, what I was saying is that Steve-O was doing all that and living on a couch, didn't have anything really going on for him, and he was basically being paid professionally to get kicked in the nuts on a regular basis. Yeah. Bam had a very prominent career as a skateboarder, and he was not doing drugs.
He was established prior
he had his own thing.
Jackass. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was not doing drugs, and he wasn't doing any of that stuff, and then he hooked up with the Jackass guys, and it got there. So it's like, where was the catalyst? We don't really know what started it, but Steve-O has been clean for, I think, 15 years ish now.
Yes, he said he's been sober for 15 years. One of the things that I wanted to touch on that he said, because we talked about both of our sobriety journeys on the podcast before, is I'm 100% in like solidarity. Steve-O says he does not believe he's never pushed his sobriety on Bam because he truly believes that is only a decision someone can make for themselves. You and I have different like sober anniversaries, sober birthdays, or whatever they call them. Both of us decided to get sober. We put ourselves first, and obviously our family, our kids, our relationship all played a huge role in getting sober. But ultimately, I think it's a decision you have to make by yourself, for yourself. Nobody can force you into it.
Well, and one of the things with, not even in sobriety, but in anything that's addicting in some way is, I used to say it back when I was a smoker, you can't quit anything for someone else.
Right.
Because the second something happens with that person, you're going to do a big fuck you to them and do whatever it is. Now, that's not the case for everybody, but it was for me. If I quit smoking for a girl I was dating or something like that, like if something was, I'm smoking my cigarettes, I'm not going to, you know what I mean? It's like you're holding that card back for something. But I mean, granted, you definitely go against yourself as a human being on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. But when you when you make the choice to quit something for yourself, it's a lot harder to be like, well, fuck me. Like, so it really is. And I know a lot of people who've gotten sober with it. You can't push it on somebody, and not everyone needs it. Some people many people can enjoy whatever and just turn it on, turn it off.
Sure. Yeah.
But but
for those of us who can't,
and you can see people who are struggling, and you can offer them guidance, but you unless they want, and I have plenty of alcoholics in my life that have no fucking interest in changing their habits. And it's like, well, that's just how you're going to be.
Well, and with any, I think, reputable rehab or sobriety partner, they call them your sponsor. They are walking that journey with you. AA doesn't work for everyone. There's different rehab doesn't work for everyone. Luckily, there's many ways to find sobriety.
Oh, yeah.
And you just find the way that works for you. I think everybody needs a little bit probably of help. I think very rarely can someone do it, just turn that switch off and then poof, they're not an addict anymore. But, I'm not going to argue with someone about how they got sober, certainly. It's really tragic to see what has happened with Bam. I grew up watching. I didn't so much watch Jackass. I honestly thought
I never
that they
really watched it.
I thought that the group of guys were kind of obnoxious. I loved Viva La Bam. I felt so bad for his parents. I'm glad to see both of his parents are still alive.
Yeah, I mean, I never watched any of those shows, but I mean, I like Johnny Knoxville a lot, and I like that he got like a second career doing all those movies and stuff like that. I don't have anything against those guys, but that's, the bro frat boy humor has never been my jam. I mean, I can find the humor in it and I'll laugh at it if I'm with a group of guys, but I was never like, oh, I can't wait to watch this on my own. I remember I remember when I was a kid feeling like I was missing out because I didn't watch Jackass because everyone was quoting it and blah, blah, blah. But then when I would actually watch it, I was like, I don't see.
Yeah.
And then you get all the Girls Gone Wild commercials, and you're like, well, I guess this is okay as an adolescent to watch these every once in a while, which that guy got like sued. Oh,
God, what is his name?
I don't even know. That's not what we're talking about. But,
neither here nor there.
But yeah, it was never my jam. But again, it is interesting. You got to, like, just to see that you have all these people in the same kind of circumstances and how it can all change depending on just what were the factors, I wonder, that let everything in. Yeah, you get plied. I've talked ad nauseum about how, your producers are going to do what they can to get what they want out of you, whether it be real or not, which is why that's why I call it reality TV. It's not. Right. We all know it's not. But it's like, what fault do we have for, like, we know the people on Bachelor are plied with alcohol. Yeah. Like, copious amounts of alcohol. I can imagine as much for this. As much, if not more, on the set of Jackass. Like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to get launched in porta potty up and down.
I'm gonna have to have something stapled to me, or something.
And so like, I mean, whether or not they were seeking those things out on their own or doing it themselves, or having it given to them. Like, I am certain that there was an amount of, I'm very cynical against the reality, industry, but I'm certain that there's some like, okay, we'll go get some of this so that we can get everybody right to get the good stuff out and make some money,
Much at the center of the case with Bam is that his parents end up bringing on this sober mental health specialist, Lima. Now, I want to talk just real briefly before we jump into the Lima of it all, just broadly, because we open up this episode with calling Bam the Britney Spears of Jackass, and this idea that people who have money, but also who have mental health issues or addiction issues, could lose their autonomy legally. Britney Spears, the whole Free Britney movement, that was huge. I was in full support of Free Britney. I think that there are huge problems with putting people that simply, and it's obviously not simply.
It's also a massive double standard, because the amount of, and I'll say only in public domain, because I know Amanda Bynes was in one. Yep. Britney Spears is in one.
They're talking about Kanye needing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're talking about Kanye needing one. The man is a nutcase.
Yes.
And he's like, those girls weren't doing any of the nonsense that this dude is going around. I'm pretty sure he just said, I'm happily announcing that I'm a Nazi the other day. Like, he's nuts. But no, he's within his own recognizance.
No. But does that in and of itself, the intention is that you do not have the mental capacity to make decisions for yourself. Like, to make medical decisions for yourself. That's the idea. Tom Girardi, who is...
Or we don't want you to spend all your money or something like that.
No, but here's the thing. Just because we've had people die, I think Karl Lagerfeld left his entire estate. He was the main designer for Chanel for years. He left like the majority of his estate to his cat. Yeah. You can do dumb shit with your money. You are allowed to do that.
Well, that's where I get the thing of I'm not first of all, I don't understand what the circumstances that you're legally able to put somebody in a conservatorship against their will ever. Like, I don't know how that comes to be.
The whole thing with Britney Spears is her entire family. So she was in this conservatorship, and mind you, I don't know all that goes into it, but it's supposed to be that you lack the mental capacity to make decisions, like medical, financial, life decisions for yourself. Like, someone who maybe suffers a traumatic brain injury might need to be in a conservatorship and have someone acting in his best interest on their behalf, because they literally cannot. Britney Spears was still putting out albums. She was performing, but she couldn't get married without her conservatorship's approval. Everybody in her family was living off of her dole. And it was a huge, I think the majority of us can agree that it was a huge abuse of the conservatorship system. Now, with that being said, does Britney Spears post alarming things on social media that
I wouldn't consider any of what she posts alarming?
But does it make you second guess her mental health? And like, she clearly is not well. However, she is just, in my opinion, simply being mentally ill or an addict does not mean that you lose your legal autonomy, in my opinion.
See, I don't even think any of the stuff, like, yeah, Britney's posted some wacky shit, but no more wacky than any other person. She's a social media user and I'm not going to say ex-celebrity, but like, she's not quite spotlit as she was back when Hit Me Baby One More Time was popular. There's plenty of would be older celebrity, not older, but like people who were in the limelight years ago who post cryptic or nonsensical things, maybe in an effort to stay relevant, or maybe just in an effort to just have a voice out there in the public record. But I don't think anything that she is doing is wildly odd. And again, like, no more so than anything. First of all, go to the comment section on any video and you're going to see more deranged people out there than any of these, like Bam Margera included. Well, it's just wild. Yeah.
And I also think this is a trend. I don't even know if that's the right thing to classify this as, but where we see people who are maybe A-list celebrities, but they're celebrities, they have money, they're in the public eye, and people are going after having control over their lives. And that is hugely problematic for me. I'm not saying any of these people are well, but I am a huge believer in having fundamental rights, and you don't just take that away from people willy-nilly.
No, 100%. And one of the things, and what Steve-O said in this documentary specifically, was that it was not a conservatorship, it was a guardianship. And again, how is one given, and this is what I would love to hear from a lawyer about, how is one given guardianship over another adult human being?
Yeah.
And then same with the conservatorship. How does that process begin? Like, I get at least, okay, your family, maybe, I don't know. This Lima wackadoo just was given guardianship over Bam. No. He's a grown ass man.
See, that's what's, and they did it. This whole episode is about Bam, and that's a huge plot hole. Like, we don't know, how did he lose his autonomy? Because he clearly already lost it. Right. Because it was his parents who brought Lima on.
Well, and then at the time, Lima, this wacky fucking girl, was brought into this. Her weirdo nonsense technology thing, her whole jam was relatively like looked fondly after. It was new and they were using it.
Let's talk about that. Yeah. So there was this YouTuber, forget his name, but he started the YouTube channel Soft White Underbelly. I've never seen it, but it's they showed like his stats, and he has like 5 million followers. So a lot of people,
sure, somebody knows.
Yeah, and I'm sure people are gonna be like, "How did you never hear of Soft White Autonomy?" But anyways, I think he started out his career as like a photographer, and then he decided to depict.
Was that the guy? Who kept talking? It was like an older dude with white hair.
Yeah.
Just to go back on this.
Okay.
Now that puts a little more context on it. I'm watching this documentary, and they keep flashing to this dude who, first of all, everything this dude says, watch it, please. Everything this dude says it is the most extreme. It's always like, that was the biggest thing I've ever seen in my entire life, and that was the worst thing that's ever happened to anyone ever. And just go with me on that one there.
Let me see. What? Well, Mark is the guy's name.
But what I'm saying about this is they kept going back to this dude, and every time it would just say, Mark, photographer. And I'm like, what the shit does this photographer have to do with any of this?
Okay, so the way...
It's like they couldn't get anyone with a professional opinion, so they got a director of photography. No, I know that now.
He started this YouTube channel, and he was showcasing like Skid Row, people with addiction issues, sex workers. He was shining a light and letting these people tell their stories.
Soft white underbelly.
Yes. That's when I guess Lima reaches out to him, and now Lima grows up in Canada, mom, dad, and she has twin younger sisters, and she goes into letting us know that her and her sisters, I think, and her mom suffered an incredible amount of
the weirdest.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
That they suffered a lot of abuse.
Yeah.
Her younger sisters had like a YouTube channel. They were actresses.
Super weird.
They experimented at one point with Molly. That really, I don't know if that triggered something, but it really set off both of them down a mental health spiral. And it seems like Lima really was trying to develop, and we're going to talk about it in a second, this VR mental health help software in an effort to help her sisters. But here's the thing. She needed to get out there and get known. So she reaches out to this guy, Mark, who is growing on YouTube and getting all these views. And she says, I have this software called Aura, and we put people in triggering situations, and we help them with their addiction,
it's basically
mental
exposure
health,
therapy.
Now, here's the thing. I have OCD. I was diagnosed at 19. The gold star treatment for OCD is something called ERP, exposure response prevention. Mm-hmm. You don't just do it. You don't just put your hand in a fire and call that ERP, right? Like, you need a professional to you need a professional to walk that journey with you so you can process everything cognitively in a healthy manner. You're not just throwing yourself into the most terrifying situations that are going to trigger a mental health crisis for you. Lima develops this software, but she has no academic or professional background.
Don't even think I find it hard to believe this monotonal weirdo developed this software, because I don't know if you know what it takes to create programs in VR, but it takes a lot of programming skills. Idea. It takes a lot of programming skills. Yeah. And Little Miss, and I'm going to put you in this now, and now I'm going to do this.
But are you a therapist?
She's
Did you
not.
go to school to be that is hugely concerning for me, that you are exposing people to triggers, because I've gone through ERP. That is very anxiety inducing, and to not have someone who's clinically trained to walk that journey with you is very problematic for me. But I mean, I think that she was well-intentioned, but I think ultimately she wanted to get known and get,
yeah, I don't think
why
she was
didn't
well-intentioned.
Why didn't she just focus this towards her sisters?
Because I think it's all
Why did she instead reach out to this massive YouTube channel? And she asked specifically, because he was like, okay, I'll hear you out, and heard out her story about what she's doing. And he's like, oh, that's interesting. You know, never heard of treatment like that before, but, you know, you've piqued my curiosity. And she's like, hey, give me your worst case, your most hardest, don't think that they could ever achieve sobriety person, and let me work with them. And that was this woman, Amanda. And her story is such a tragedy. And Lima becomes her legal guardian. Amanda was facing, I think, assault charges from an incident that stemmed from an altercation she got in with her father. His face is blurred out, but her father is.
She attacked him with a pipe.
Yeah, but so Lima is sitting with Amanda's father, and they're explaining how they're getting Amanda treatment. We catch up with Amanda, I don't know, like a year later or something. She's put on weight. She looks healthy. She looks vibrant. When we first get introduced to Amanda, she is in a really bad way.
Well, she's like full on, probably withdrawal is what we were looking at.
Yeah, but the story does not end well. The story ends with Amanda dying.
Yep.
And
this Lima goes and one of the things that goes out there, she reads this autopsy report about how Amanda died. She's sitting there, and I'm going to read it for and this is funny because now we're going to do a meta impression here, because this BJ woman YouTube lawyer person goes on in this thing to make fun of the way Lima talks about what I'm about to talk about while making fun of Lima. So she literally just goes on and she's like, and it turns out that she died of some post-traumatic seizure disorder, but they couldn't call it that. So they said that she had a seizure disorder. And I guess the BJ lawyer lady pulled the legit autopsy because it's public record. And she's like, not only was none of that in the autopsy record, it says she died of a cardiac event.
Yeah. So then, though, because Beth Karras is here to bring us all back to reality, because here's the thing. We are introduced then to this gal, BJ, who is a YouTuber, and she's a lawyer, inspiration, Elle Woods. She's heavy. She is the leader of the Free Bam movement. She has had Bam into her home, which Steve-O comments is hugely alarming. Lima and BJ are two extremes, right? I don't think either one of them are
altruistic.
Yeah, exactly. I question both of them and their motives.
So Lima and this BJ woman absolutely seem like they're doing everything they can. It's not to help people, but it's to look like they want to help people while making money. Yeah.
So Beth Karras kind of brings us down back to reality. And I guess in Amanda's autopsy, she had gabapentin in her system, which is used to treat a multitude of things.
It's like nerve pain,
but
and stuff
it can treat. Either it can treat seizures or seizures can be a side effect. I'm not 100% sure. Anyways, Beth Karras was like reading the autopsy and said, you can't really say that what Lima was insinuating was a lie. But that's what BJ gets on her YouTube channel and is just spouting all of this rhetoric. She hates Lima and is really coming for her. And is some of that warranted? I don't think Lima's acting with the best intentions.
I don't like
Bam,
her.
But I don't think, I mean, BJ is instigating. And this is what you have to be careful with as a content creator. And, you know, I know this firsthand. I actively, when people DM me and I'm interacting with people, did you see what so-and-so said about you? I never, ever want someone acting on my behalf. I can act on my own behalf, and I 99.9% of the time choose to ignore because that it serves no purpose. I'm over here doing my thing. We're over here doing our thing. Let people, if you don't engage in that, then it dies. If you don't feed the fire, it dies, right? That's my personal belief. So I actively try to, and it rarely happens with me. I don't create in a space that's hugely controversial, sister wives. But whenever something does spark up and people want to like ride for me, I say, let's take a step back. I appreciate the support, but that is not what I'm about. I am not about going after anybody at all. So let them do their thing. There's room for everybody. BJ and I do not share those same values.
No.
BJ is instigating people to like, we ride at dawn and like, let's fuck Lima's life up in as many ways as possible. They end up like there's people doxing family member. Like this is just hugely problematic behavior. And BJ is encouraging it. From what I can see. And that is so irresponsible when you have a platform and people look to you or watch you, follow you. It is incredibly problematic to tell them, or maybe not tell them directly.
To insinuate.
To instigate, to rile people up, to where they do things that it's like, if you were in your real life, see, the internet is a crazy place. And it's like, if you're in your real life and you had a bad experience at the grocery store, would you post the cashier's address on the internet and be like, like, fuck this guy? No.
It's unlikely, but I'm going to say it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Well, but so my thing is, it's like, you guys, Lima and BJ, y'all can dislike each other and y'all can think that each person is not acting with the best intentions towards Bam, but then that is that. Like, both of them are taking it like next level. Lima is going over to Bam's house. In my opinion, from what I saw in this episode, I believe that she is instigating him and getting him riled up, and then she calls the police on him.
Yeah.
So he's getting arrested.
And she gets her views and her likes.
Well, and I don't know if that, because she is his legal guardian, but she's not his conservator. So she does not have a financial dog in the fight yet. Like, what is her motivation there? Why?
Well, she got money for this episode. You know, she didn't do that for free.
Yeah. And then BJ has gotten Bam all riled up against Lima. And now, and we hear from Steve-O, who is talking about, Bam goes to BJ's house. Now he's like calling Lima out on social media. And this woman is still his legal guardian. It's a whole big mess. But the majority of this episode is about BJ versus Lima.
Yep.
And Bam's story gets tragically lost.
I have some notes that or some little tidbits.
Let's hear it.
So Aura, this revolutionary therapy, untested.
Matt brought his VR for
reference.
For reference.
For reference. This Aura software, this revolutionary exposure therapy, very likely, I can't say definitively, but I can say very likely is no longer in existence.
Oh, it's not. There was a screen on text that said Aura was no
The
longer.
last post from Aura was in 2011.
2011?
2021.
Oh, I was like, whoa.
The last post from Lima was 2023. So she's not even posting on her own Instagram anymore.
Okay.
And then I had...
That's weird because they make it seem, because this episode came out in 2025, they make this seem a lot more recent.
I went to her Instagram, and her Instagram's last post was 9/16. 2023. Up until the last two posts, it was all nonsense about Aura, and then the last two posts were some weird parenting memes that I feel like don't even apply to her. But I don't know, I just don't like her very much. But I got this article about this is from it's Y Entertainment. Sorry, I'm old. I called it Yahoo.
Oh, I didn't know that it became Y Entertainment.
That's what it is. Apparently.
My apologies.
So Bam went on during this. I kind of condensed this article around. It says that it should have been called The Curious Case of Lima, not The Curious Case of Bam Margera.
Yeah, for sure.
Referring to his former guardian tech entrepreneur, Lima Margera.
Former guardian.
Yeah.
She's no longer his guardian.
Yep. And so that's good then he implied that he doesn't even remember giving consent to participate in the docuseries. So that alone is problematic. There's a bit in this article that I was going to read through.
Okay.
So he says, if I signed off on that, they didn't blur my face. I don't remember shit. I was probably higher than Jiminy Cricket on fucking bath salts in the treatment center on 18 different medications, he continued. However, the Viva La Bam star said that he was glad to see someone finally do the research to expose Lima and her fucking nutty behavior. The Curious Case of Bam Margera explored the former pro skateboarder's controversial guardianship, which was led by Lima, a Hollywood entrepreneur who was working in the addiction and recovery industry. She founded the company Aura, which used virtual reality software to treat patients struggling with addiction. After Bam entered his guardianship, Lima placed him in a rehab center where he received the virtual reality treatment. However, after leaving the center in 2022, Bam continued to struggle with addictions and face legal issues. This is where BJ comes into a thing.
Right. Okay.
YouTuber BJ Corville, who advocated for Bam's freedom from the guardianship, spoke out against Lima in videos online and investigated Amanda's case after discovering that the former Aura patient had died. In a video, Lima had read Amanda's autopsy report and claimed that her cause of death was a seizure disorder, something that we just talked about that. Yeah. And she requested the autopsy, yada, yada, yada. Aura has ceased operations. Additionally, Lima has filed a libel lawsuit against BJ, which is still pending. Bam spoke out about Amanda's case in his response to the video, claiming that Lima had been faking the autopsy report on her death. He also spoke out against virtual reality as a form of treatment, which I can't say that I know the science behind it, but at least what I saw of those screenshots of where they showed some of the virtual reality, I was like, it doesn't look very clinical
as
to
someone,
me.
I can only speak for myself. What I witnessed, that horrified me. As someone who is mentally ill, who has received exposure therapy.
Which is a real thing.
Yes, absolutely. Frightens me. That frightens me.
Well, and there's some things. I'll finish the article in a second. But one of the things that I'm kind of piecing together on my own in regards to this is that if you think about this being in 2020, right? This started around 2020. Well, what also happened in 2020?
Pandemic.
The pandemic happened in 2020. What became far more prevalent is people meeting in virtual spaces.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
And drug abuse and addiction became a lot more, prominent and out there. But some dummy Lima goes, well, what if I could take people and put them in their immersive things in a VR? You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of seemed like a sign of literally, that's like a snapshot of that time in history.
Well,
because you couldn't go to some probably couldn't go to a lot of rehab facilities because of
I think both Lima and BJ have very similar spirals to Bam. Bam's spiral was with addiction and substance use, right? I don't think that Bam started out being like, I'm gonna be the worst addict ever. I think Lima and BJ both started off well-intentioned. Lima wants to ultimately find a way to help her sisters. BJ ultimately wants to find a way to shine a light on these controversial conservatorship, legal guardianships and whatnot. And it just gets so out of control.
Yeah. Well, it becomes more about them than it becomes about the people they're helping. And I don't know.
And then I can no longer say it's well-intentioned.
Yeah.
Because I no longer believe that Lima or BJ are acting in... Certainly, they're not acting in Bam Margera's best interest.
Last words from Bam in this article. Because I'm giving Bam more time than he had in this actual thing. Now, don't get me wrong. I have no love lost for Bam. I care for him on a human level, but I don't really know of him. So I'm not just like, oh, let me give him a voice.
He's a very sick person.
Right.
It's very sad.
And I don't have any hate for the man. I'm like, but here's what we got for him is here.
Okay.
And making people wear this Aura helmet unlicensed. I put that shit on and any drug addict could go into a seizure from that, Bam said, describing seeing images of a T-Rex trying to eat you and a kitty cat drinking milk. So it's very confusing, he added. Bam claimed that he had not had any seizures in his life until I met Lima, in quotes. And then he had 5 seizures at 20 minutes apiece, only to wake up 8 days on life support with a fucking tube down my throat with COVID and pneumonia.
I wouldn't...
that seemed a little bit of a spiral.
In that.
He said, so it doesn't take a science rocket to figure out that it's not a coincidence. He continued.
Okay, here's the thing. And Steve-O points this out in the documentary that BJ has really incited all of this paranoia in Bam.
It's not hard to get onto that. Yeah.
So Bam gets told that this woman that previously was treated by Lima dies from an alleged seizure disorder.
Right.
And all of a sudden now Bam has a seizure disorder.
I'm not here's the thing.
He didn't have a seizure.
No, but he didn't mention that in the documentary at all.
No. So I mean...
It just seems a little convenient.
Yeah. And Steve-O was kind of putting it out there that
there's a bit.
This BJ person is definitely not a good influence.
Well, but let's also not forget that Bam is a drug addict. So not everything that comes out of his mouth is the gospel truth. But that's not being
And he clearly has untreated
issues,
mental illness. Yeah. And it's really sad because what do a lot of us do that suffer from mental illness? We self-medicate. I was just talking to my mom when she was out here, because I've been on Prozac since I was 19. And for probably, I don't know how many years I was heavily drinking, probably around 7 to 10 years. I was doing everything I could to counteract what Prozac was trying to do for my brain.
You were swimming upstream, is what they said.
Yeah, I was like, Prozac, fuck you. Here's a glass of wine. It's like, why do we do that to ourselves? Because we're sick. We're sick people. And addiction, I personally do not, I consider addiction a disease like you would cancer. And you want to help people get healthy and get rid of this thing that is afflicting them. I have a lot of sympathy for Bam because I think a lot of things are just out of control and out of his control. But what is the right answer for getting his life back in control? I do not think that taking away all of his autonomy and his, we have established here in America, and we fight about it all the time in politics about certain inalienable rights, right? And how can you just tell someone that has some money? Because are we putting
are we putting
poor mentally ill people in conservatorships?
No, they're in a conservatorship of their own design,
right? A
glass case of emotion, if you will.
And why is it that? And I think Britney Spears' family acted with poor intentions, yeah. Bam's family, I don't know, because in this documentary, we hardly
so anything we would say
for this like showdown between BJ and Lima, but it's hardly about Bam and his sobriety journey. I don't know. I remember watching Viva La Bam, and I remember finding his family very endearing, and I felt bad for them that they were constantly, their house was constantly getting fucked up and stuff. But imagine you're Bam, right? And you own this house, and this house gets taken away from you and then given to your brother, like his brother is leasing his house. What is that about? And then if he tries to go into the house that he owns, he gets the cops called on him.
Yeah, see, I don't get that.
How infuriating is that?
Yeah.
As a and like take out the addiction of it all. Are you kidding me? I can't go onto my own property.
Well, and that speaks back to the same nonsense of like you don't see poor people on conservatorships. It's like, he can't go. He could be at home not being nefarious in public, but he's not even allowed to go to his house. You know what I mean? Like, he has a house. Like, there's a measure of stability when you picture a home,
We do get one soundbite from his mom. She says, whenever we see Bam, imagine the worst case scenario. It's worse than that. Wow. That is... I'm so sorry. That is so tragic. I'm sorry that this family has to deal with that. But why did his house get taken away from him?
Well, and they showed some of his rants that he did on various forms of social media and text messages. He sounds like some of the homeless people that you'd walk by in LA,
but
where you're just screaming at people.
Why? I hope Bam gets sober. I hope that he gets out of this spiral that he's in. He's a very sick individual, but does that mean that he needs to lose his home? That his family gets to come in and overtake his home? What, in theory, why can't he just be getting drunk and high or doing whatever in his own home? He owns
that's what I'm
home.
saying.
That's
like
his property.
You're making him go somewhere to do things, you know?
And like, okay, if he's out in public, if he's breaking the law, I mean, I know doing drugs is breaking the law, like whatever, but if he's causing a ruckus in public, right? Obviously you arrest him and he deals with that. Why is he put out on his ass and not allowed to go to his home? All of these confrontations that we see in this docuseries is about him trying to be on his own property. And then he's telling Lima to leave him the fuck alone.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm calling the cops. And it's like, why? Why are we doing this to antagonize him? And we see his girlfriend. Well, they blurred his girlfriend's face out.
His wife.
Oh, wife?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, they blurred her face out, but they didn't blur his face out. So,
well, that just means she didn't sign a consent.
Well, but he's saying he doesn't remember. Let's wrap this up. Final thoughts. This was a miss in what it set out to do, which I'm assuming is to document the struggles of Bam Margera, right?
Well, I'm sure
that was a swing and a miss.
I bet that there are probably hundreds of hours of footage for this that were condensed down to a 1 hour, 45-minute special. It wouldn't surprise me that the evolution of this project, it was announced, it was billed, and it was postered up as The Curious Case of Bam Margera. But then when they got all the footage together and the editors and everything looked at everything and they realized there's a story here, it's just not necessarily his story, but we can't tell this story without starting this story.
We can't get to point B without first going over point A.
It wouldn't surprise me if there was an entire 45-minute arc that was just Bam. And then they realized that it's like,
that's not what the story is.
I get it. I got what I needed to about Bam's whatever's going on with him. I understand that from this. I don't think I really needed any more information about him, but I did more so, and I think this is probably where they found that it landed. I did more so enjoy hearing about these weird women fighting with each other, both of which this Lima girl should be institutionalized. Like the way that she just talks. I think that she says her sisters have diagnosed mental illness. I think she needs to look in a mirror herself. I was going to say,
I from what it sounds like, she had an extremely traumatic upbringing, and maybe she's not as bad off as her sisters, but has she addressed that? I don't know. I think she is not the right person to help Bam. I don't think BJ is the right person to help Bam.
And then they show this weird warrior woman who like this.
That was her like that was BJ's flying monkey.
Yeah,
that was her like, oh, I'm gonna go dox this person because I follow BJ and blah blah blah. And
this
it's like,
poor woman just looked like she was wearing the pink puffy shit on her head. Yeah. It's just like, God, and it looked like she made this her whole identity. Well, and it's like, dude, that's so weird.
Well, and that's when you have to stop, take a step back, realize that the internet is not reality.
And there are too many people who become what they see. They're like, oh, this is me now. Yeah. And that's psychotic. And I don't support this whole situation in any way.
What I took away, we'll each go with what we took away from this is, for me, what I took away was that nobody had Bam's best interest at heart. He is still an incredibly sick individual. I think for him, if he doesn't get help, there are going to be dire consequences imminently.
Well, he doesn't look good.
He does not look good. And
one point the girl says, "Oh, you look good." And I'm like, what level did you see him before this? Because he doesn't look good at all.
Yeah, and I think he has a lot of people like in his orbit, maybe not like real close to him, but like you can tell that Steve-O is at a loss, like wants to help, knows him from 20 years ago, would love to see him get sober, but it's kind of like, what do we do? I think his parents have reached the what do we do point. But my question for his parents is, why are all of his things being taken away from him? I don't understand.
If you look at it, what do you do with a child when they're acting up? You take things away from him.
Bam's not a child.
No, but you're infantilizing him because you're saying that he's not able to make it easier. I'm going to put him in like the parents offered him up for the guardianship. That, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, so I would like to know more about that. Like how did Bam's parents get to be his? Because clearly they in some way became his legal guardian. And maybe that was a diversion program, you know.
It could have been, it could have been
in jail. I don't know.
It could have been the court saying you have two options. So a lot of the times in situations with addiction-related lawsuits and stuff like that, it's like you're gonna seek alcohol and drug counseling, or you're gonna go to jail because the system doesn't want to deal with you anymore. So make a decision.
Yeah, but when are we taking? I have a huge problem with taking people's autonomy away from them.
I still don't know how you can even do that. But
unless
I look forward to my kids doing it to me someday.
Cannot put pen to paper to like sign something for themselves. If they cannot do that,
the layer of alcohol or of craziness in just the article I read about the things that he was saying. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he was unable to put a pen to paper. He sounded like I was on bath salts. I think once you move past meth to bath salts, like,
what do they say? Meth. Not even once. Not even once.
But like, it is like at a certain level of drug abuse, you do kind of have to lose. You have not actively been taking care of yourself and the drugs. And one of the things is you have to look at it like this. Help should not be harder to find than the drugs you're buying. And unfortunately, in today's society,
excellent point.
Help is a lot harder to find, and not just harder to find, harder to afford. Good help, good therapy is not cheap. Drug addicts do not have money. They have money for drugs, and unfortunately, all the drugs almost all the drugs are relatively inexpensive in small doses, and you have that kind of money and whatever you have left over from money when you had money, you still have, I'm sure, something coming in here and there. Mm-hmm. But therapy costs big bucks. And unfortunately, it doesn't give you the rush that one bag of smack's going to give you, so it's systemic. This problem is the help that you need is blocked behind a paywall, really. And the drugs are everywhere. And if you know people, if you are a celebrity or even a beta celebrity, you can get free drugs. It's like what was it that they said? It was the good line from Bill Nighy in Love Actually. Kids, listen to your uncle, whatever he called himself. Don't buy drugs. Become a celebrity and they give you the drugs for free. But that's true. That is true. There's been plenty of, if you go to parties, you hang out with famous people and big people. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody, but drugs exist. Drugs exist in a lot of places you probably wouldn't think they do.
I think that's exactly what happened to Bam.
And just when they're there, and a lot of people, if they already bought, I'll share some with you. You want a bump? You want to take a hit, a shot? Go for it.
Shit's dangerous nowadays. Shit's laced with things you don't know. You think you're buying something, it's laced with fentanyl. And then you're fucking brain dead in the ER. We've been watching The Pit on Max, which is...
Great show.
Yeah.
But it is, and I think it is a problem that needs to be addressed in this country, is that people, this is the problem, that's the problem. No, I think it's the fact that the only way out for a lot of people, I feel like the only way out is through.
It is, yeah.
And the only way to get through is with a little help, and that help is not... It's not right here. It's not next to me. I can't afford it. I can't find it. It's easier for me to call my dealer than it is for me to call a therapist. Therapy and stuff does not give me the same rush that my drugs, which I can get very easy. It's not like you can say I quit drugs and then the dealers will honor your quitting drugs. It's a very bad cycle. And I do believe that this country is not doing an excellent job at dealing with what the real problem is, which is getting people the help that they need. Nobody wants our tax dollars to go and help drug addicts because people don't believe that drug addicts are real people. They don't think that they're worth their time. That's not everybody's opinion, but I guarantee if you had a choice of where your tax dollars were going to go, is I guess I don't want anyone who's doing drugs to get any of my money, even though it's for help. I'd rather it go to financing a new $1 million rug in some dumb congressman's office for some stupid reason.
And I think that is where BJ started off with her YouTube channel, was kind of giving a voice to the voiceless.
Yeah, and that's an honorable...
That quickly got real out of control. When you start having people copying your headband look and then doxing people in your honor, you've jumped the shark. Is that what they call it?
Jumped the shark.
Yeah.
It's
when a show just totally
did the highest thing. It will never be as good as that moment.
That's when you've lost the plot.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's where I got from it. And if anyone takes anything from this, is that it's not easy to find help. And
no, it's not.
And even there's people who are looking for it and they're trying really hard, and it's just you can trip and fall right back into habits while you're looking to try and get out of them.
Well, and I know for myself, I mean, painkillers have never been my drug of choice anyways, but going into this elective surgery that I was having, I did talk with my therapist about, I was a little nervous. I knew that I was going to need, pain management, but I didn't I know that is a gateway. Like people sustain back injuries and all of a sudden they are addicted to opiates.
I had a friend of mine who had gotten into a car accident and he tweaked his back.
Yeah.
And he was on opiates.
Yeah.
But he low income family, in a not so great neighborhood, and they tagged him for drug seeking behavior. So they stopped giving him his opiates. He ended up seeking comfort in heroin, and he OD'd because of it. And he's not with us anymore. And that's one of those situations where it's like, sometimes we go so far to try and stop the opiate crisis. Well, don't worry, we didn't give him any more opiates. Great, but he was still in pain, and it was real pain, and he went and he found a way to dull that pain. And unfortunately, after many abuse times with that was the end of it. And that happens. It's a story as old as time when it comes to this stuff.
So for me, it was really important for me to get off of the hard stuff as quickly as possible, because number one, like we said in the beginning, constipation, not the business.
No, thank you.
And just I didn't want to risk, liking anything a little too much, Yeah.
Like Skittles. You're a Skittle addict. It's not diminishing people who have addictions. The woman has Skittles like mainline.
So we, my daughter is our daughter.
Just her daughter.
Is in a very intense academic program. She's in kindergarten, but it's a little overwhelming.
Tell you what, we'll talk about that one another time. It's ridiculous.
It's a tad overwhelming for all of us. And I'm not above trading
bribery, baby.
Trading Skittles for homework. So
tell you crunchy moms out there, I come at me, bro. I would never let my child be on an iPad.
So I've had to have Matt hide the Skittles from me because
and that's not a euphemism.
No, and then I know that we can go into that, could be a topic for another podcast. I don't want to set an example for my daughter where she thinks that like I have no willpower or anything like that. So I know I got to get my shit together, but I don't know what I was looking for in this utility closet in our podcast studio, but that is where Matt hid the Skittles, and I found them. And I texted him, he was at work, and I said, I found the Skittles. I'm so sorry.
Just to be fair, I don't hide them very well. I just know that Sarah's powers of observation leave a lot to be desired. And so I just know, in fact, if I put something, I really could just put it somewhere just off to the side. And it's unlikely she'll ever find it unless she was looking for something else in that exact same area. So I'm pretty good. I could probably move them to the other side of the shelf and she wouldn't find them.
Oh my goodness. That's true, because I'm often like, where is this? Where is it? Oh my God. Me cutting that box open.
That was embarrassing.
Yeah. Matt was like, please hand me the knife. Step away from the box.
I do this for a living.
Yeah. I am. Yeah.
That's all we got on that one today. We got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
We got the kids. Got to go make sure they're still trucking around in there. And don't forget to follow us on all the social medias. Do mostly no harm everywhere social media can be found, unless I haven't found that social media yet.
Well, we still cannot TikTok. So.
Well, that's it. I don't even think
about. Does anyone know? Let us know in the comments. Are there? I haven't even heard. It was like Mr. Beast was going to come in and buy TikTok. Trump was going to save the day, and then it's gone crickets.
Well, it is what it is. I think about TikTok now as much as I did before, which is just about not at all. But check us out on www.level42studios.com, where you can look at all of Sarah's other shows on the show page. You can go to the contact page to reach out to us with a topic of conversation, questions, comments, or concerns. Anything you would like to know, feel free to shoot us a line. And other than that, I think that's about it. You got anything going on?
Drop us a line. Maybe shoot us a line.
Hey, just snort us a line. Chop us up a line.
Per the topic of this, probably not appropriate. Yeah. Drop us a line.
Do whatever you want. Do whatever you want to do with that line. No one's looking. All right. We got to get going. So anyways, as always, we're going to keep it frosty, and we're going to do mostly
no harm. Have a good one, you guys. Bye-bye.